Hi everyone, James here from Akamai's. I'm here in the wonderful Las Vegas area for ChannelCon, one of the flagship event CompTIA. I've stumbled into Brian Kane. Brian's joined me kindly to talk all things sort of cloud trends and to give his perspective on the technology space. Brian is a cyber evangelist, is your official title. Brian, can I get an introduction for you?
Absolutely. So first off, I've been in the industry for about 20 years now. I started on the tech side of the industry. I've been an engineer. I used to work field systems for a Fortune 100 company. Then I got really deep into MSP. So started in MSP, built it, grew it, really enjoyed it, loved it, sold. Then left, went back into corporate. I did oil and gas for a few years as a technology leader. Then I loved MSP so much, I loved SMB so much, so I went back into MSP. Then I went to a reseller. So I got to get a little mix of flavors there. So I enjoyed working with that. Then I went back into MSP again, but in a different role. I came into a corporate role where we actually opened MSPs across the country. And so now I actually work for a cybersecurity company. I work for Malwarebytes. I'm a cybersecurity evangelist. So I spend my time working with MSPs and really talking to them about their business, cybersecurity as a culture, how things are changing, what we're seeing, and how we want to grow it and protect our customers.
That's fantastic. So that's a seriously broad range of experience you've got there. And
It is.
You've got a highly technical background as well, which is why I'm really interested to get your take on both what you're seeing in the out there in the market in terms of MSPs and their maturity when it comes to sort of cloud adoption and where they're at in terms of, are you still seeing, is it on-premise servers still at play? And how do you see the landscape at the moment? What are you picking up?
Absolutely. So I think it's starting to change. But I think we're seeing the change in different segments and in different pieces of the technology at different times. So one of the things I think we've probably matured in faster, and things like COVID, I think, helped boost this. And that is things like Office 365, Google, moving mail outside, starting to maybe shift some of our shared files, things like that. So I think culturally we realized, hey, we can't be completely tied to the office. So I think when it comes to identity and some of that, I think we've made some leaps and bounds over the last few years.
Okay, so putting some kind of identity management into the cloud space. It's kind of so I guess MSPs are they were forced to make a lot of decisions very quickly, right? And so they put SaaS applications, the low hanging fruit. What do you see in the way of infrastructure as a service in terms of have you got MSPs that you see working and running applications perhaps on sort of infrastructure?
I do. So this is a place where I think it's still slower. I think this is something that is going to take time. Because when we think of on-prem, let's think of on-prem for a minute. Traditionally, it's a server installed on site. It was managing, identity, applications, files. I think we've found a way to kind of broach the identity, some of the file storage, things like that. Even though I still see kind of a mix, I think the struggle has been the application piece. So where does that application go? How do we move it? And how do we shift the process? I think this is just a concept. In our minds, we're like, oh, well, I'm used to installing the program and then accessing it via a client or via VPN or whatever. How do I get that to the cloud? Can I make that exist in the cloud without a Windows server? Because it's always lived on a Windows server.
And so do you think it's a limitation in terms of the skills that MSPs have at the moment? They don't feel comfortable in that on the whole? And also, do you find it's the same across the larger MSPs as well? How do you see that in terms of the size? Does that affect the capability of being able to handle these projects?
I think the size absolutely affects it. Also, potentially like the target client. So depending on the types of clients they have, I think more mature MSPs are getting into containerization. They're getting into taking applications, forcing them on the web or doing different things, hosting them somewhere else. I think some of the growing MSPs that are still up and coming and learning who they are, I think that probably isn't at the top of their list because they're getting paid right now to back up a server or manage a server and things like that. Mm-hmm. So what we need to work on is, hey, we can still get that revenue, but take that equipment, take those pieces, move them somewhere else where they can be more efficient. And to be fair, they can probably make more margin.
I was going to ask you about this. So do you see that as a real opportunity in the future? Do you think it's been one of these things that perhaps becomes more of an opportunity, that people are going to focus more on that once they've got the basics, the basic sort of stack delivered to as many customers as possible? Or we then looking at, these last cloud projects? Is that going to be a trend, do you think?
I think it will absolutely be a trend. I think it's starting. I think it's moving in that direction. I think the other thing to consider, when we think globally, so we can talk US, but if we get global, one of the limitations I think we're still dealing with, as crazy as it is connection, bandwidth, things like that. So I think cellular, as we continue to grow, we're doing so. I think it'll potentially outpace, sometimes what people have for coaxial or fiber or whatever it is, because there are
5G, this kind of stuff. Yeah,
I think that's gonna outpace and get us where we need to be. I'll give you an example. A customer that a lot of times really likes to have or needs an on-prem server, healthcare. So a dentist, for example, I'm just going to use them as an example. They take x-rays, they do 3D images. These are still large files. So if I instantly want access to that file on this computer, that computer, having it on-prem, there's some advantages, whereas it may take a while to load that up into the cloud, synchronize it, and make it available for everyone else.
It's not a one-stop solution.
It's not a one-stop solution.
Still make sense to go on-premise. You've had some experience with multi-cloud as well, is that right? So in the past, building architecture on using multiple providers.
Yes.
And where do you see that fitting? Because it's often it's regarded by some MSPs as more a marketing term or whatever, and then maybe there's not that inclination to pick the best of the providers and put them together. What's your experience of that? Where have you seen the benefits? Where does it work?
So I think the advancements in technology when it comes to kind of what I would call like replication or shadow copy or shadow storage, I think there's a huge advantage there to say, okay, great, and I'm going to use just crazy numbers just to make the example. So if I'm paying $10,000 to this provider to host all of this data, maybe I pay this other provider over here $1,000 or $1,500 to keep an exact replica copy of this that lives somewhere else, that's live, that could be turned on, that we could have access to, that's ready to go. And I think that could be really competitive. There are disaster recovery companies out there that are doing a lot of these pieces, but there are multiple steps and different complications sometimes when creating that versus, hey, I'm living in two clouds right now. And, essentially it goes to kind of turn the volume up on that second cloud if there's a failure or if something happens or an incident occurs.
Yeah, okay, perfect. That makes a lot of sense. Do you have any experience with the sort of the open source space? And obviously you built numerous solutions, and I'm wondering what your experience is in terms of your views on how open source technologies are viewed in the MSP space, but also where you've perhaps used them in the past.
Absolutely. So I'm a huge fan of open source. I love technology that's created for all, created for the masses. And usually when you see open source software, you're seeing something that's been created for a purpose to help make something better or change it. And I'll say this from experience. So I work at Malwarebytes. Great. Malwarebytes started open source. It was a free product. There's a free product still exists. Okay, so that was the root of that, is there was a problem. You wanted to find a solution, and we figured that solution can help others. So that's where that comes from. I think the fear with MSPs and open source, I think what it comes from is when you are an MSP provider, when your customers are relying on you to support them, to keep them up and running, the fear, I think, is exactly that, support. Is a lot of open source software is relegated to community support, things like that, which there are some amazing communities out there, great support resources, but it's not the same as, hey, Mr. Vendor, my stuff is broken and you need to help me fix it. Now, it does.
Because there are some sort of commercial organisations that put that support layer in place, but you're
correct.
Obviously for some it is.
Or there's an additional cost. Some of the open source companies say, hey, we keep our stuff open source for this reason, but for an additional cost, which usually isn't that bad of a cost, we'll also provide you support. But I think that's where the fear comes from. I think it's just sometimes a fear of what could happen. Where would I be in the situation that there's a breach or an incident or whatever? But there is a lot of amazing software out there that provides, I would say sometimes equal, if not better, power.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good to get your take on that. So let's finish up then. In terms of what's exciting you in terms of the topics you're talking about at the moment. So you're on the road quite a bit, talking to MSPs everywhere. Tell me what are the topic areas? And I suspect you might mention AI. I don't know.
I was absolutely about to say AI. Every session I do, it comes up.
There's been a lot of AI here, and it's been fascinating. But tell me your perspective on it. Then, where do you see it going?
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think it's amazing. I know some people, again, sometimes people are scared of what this could be. What's it going to turn into? Our computer's going to turn into our overlords and just like overthrow us all.
Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable. But in the meantime,
absolutely.
How can we make the best of it?
I think that there's that saying, the Simpsons already did it or predicted it.
Yeah.
The iPods walking around, whipping the ears at you. I think it's coming. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
But no, I think a lot of the fear, is, what is it going to become? What's going to happen? I think the take on it really should be like, oh my gosh, look at the things that the average person, who has an idea, who's creative, who wants to take their thoughts into different directions, is going to have the ability to start to create.
Yeah.
Okay. I think about the resources now available to people, and what I think we're going to see, I think what the industry is going to see is, I think we're going to see cool new products. I think we're going to see more individuals or small groups of people developing things that maybe without some of these resources wouldn't have been possible. So I think we're going to see
not necessarily AI products, but just products that they can suddenly create because they've got the resources.
Because they've got the resources. Yeah. Think about that. I look at AI as exactly what it is. It's a resource. It's a toolbox where I would have maybe needed to go hire 3 or 4 people to help me come up with the dev work on this, the marketing around this, the language around this. I've got tools at my fingertips. Now, I think a new skill set's going to develop. All right?
Undoubtedly.
So I think the skill set is going to be like just like there's different languages in the world, I think AI it's, hey, I know how to speak AI.
Well, it's prompt engineering as a starting point.
You're 100% on point. Yeah. So how do I prompt AI to get the results that I need?
Get the most out of it. It's an exciting area, it really is.
Totally exciting and a lot of fun.
Excellent. Brian, it's been great fun talking to you. Thanks so much for that. Where can we find you? Is there anywhere if somebody wants to reach out and ask you any questions, pick your brains? Where can we find you?
Absolutely. Connect with me on LinkedIn. So linkedin.com/in/TheRealCyberPro. All right. Excited to connect with people. Always happy to have a conversation. And then also look me up at Malwarebytes. I'll just go and throw my email up, bkane@malwarebytes.com. Reach out to me. I love talking to people and helping people.
Perfect. Yeah, it's been really good. Thank you so much for joining us. I really enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you.
Cheers.